Today I'll answer some quick questions about field day. It's that time of the year and you're not going to want to miss this. We're going to answer some field day questions coming up right now. Hey everyone, welcome to the Shack. I am Ria and my call sign is N2RJ. I'm a ham radio operator that has been licensed for almost 25 years and I want to pass along my knowledge and experience to you. So if you don't want to miss a video, why don't you hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you get notified of my latest videos when they are released. Today we're doing a quick Q&A on field day to kick off our field day series. We will talk about the rules, best practices, gear, and more. So you're going to want to subscribe to get the whole series, which I will also have in a playlist. So with regard to the rules, there is one change this year, and I'll state that right up front. Like last year, home stations not running on emergency power can contact other home stations not running on emergency power. The difference is that this year you are limited to 150 watts of power to your antenna if you decide to go that route. All other stations can run up to 1500 watts. Bear in mind though that most field day stations prefer to run around 100 to 150 watts because they get a bonus for running lower power, and they also don't have to use as much power from the generator or batteries. An even bigger deal is that you can have stations close together without the powerful 1500 watt signal blowing out nearby radio's front end. So it won't be that big of a deal to run 150 watts or less. Next year, provided the health situation remains stable, we can go back to the old rules, I'm hoping. Now on to the questions. First question comes from Brennan, N4QX. Is self-spotting or off-air solicitation of QSOs, or conversations, contacts, permitted? For those of you unfamiliar, ham radio operators have this practice called spotting. No, it's not some weird medical or chemical thing. It's where you connect to a virtual bulletin board of sorts called a DX cluster and announce where a station you heard is on the bands. Usually the frequency and a comment, which may be a mode, a short description, or other information about the station. It used to be on packet radio, but now it's almost entirely on the internet. Stations like DX Summit and DXWatch.com show you the spots, but you can also use a Telnet client and connect to a node that way. Many logging software packages have a feature to ingest and display this data as well. Self-spotting is where you announce your own operation. For contest operation, it's almost always forbidden. But remember, field day is not a contest. So to answer the question, the rules are completely silent on self-spotting. Absolutely nothing speaks for or against the practice. This means that it's not disallowed. Whether or not it's a good thing is between you and your conscience, but field day isn't adjudicated, the points don't matter, and everyone has a good time, so self-spotting isn't really that big of a deal. Next question comes from Brett Glass, WY7BG. Any special rules for digital modes? First, let's actually clarify what a digital mode is. We call them digital modes, but the FCC actually calls them data modes, and this distinction is actually pretty important. The reason is that digital modulation can be used to carry telephony, images, and not just data such as text or binary data. The FCC has this weird classification where the content of the message payload is what matters, not the modulation so much. And this is how our bands are divided up in the USA. Other countries, including Canada, largely don't have this restriction. I'm not saying this is a good or bad thing, but with the large numbers of licensees we have, it probably helps to keep incompatible modes from interfering with each other. So modes that carry data are data modes. Morse code is considered telegraphy. Radio teletype is called radio teletype, but also classified along with data. So to answer Brett's question, the field day rules do give more points for Morse code and data modes, and all data modes are allowed in field day as long as they are legal. There are one or two modes which are not legal in the USA, and that would be, for example, a factor of 4 and Ross mode, but actually Canadian stations can use them. Unlike winter field day though, in ARRL Field Day, you can run the weak signal modes like FT8 and FT4. There is even a setting in WSJTX software that sets up the exchange for Field Day. You know, the bit of information that you send to the other station to complete the contact, and send that. This was specially added by the WSJT development team specifically for Field Day. Digital voice such as D-Star, FreeDV, Fusion, or DMR is counted as phone. Digital SSTV such as EasyPal, which uses DRM or D-Star picture sharing, is counted as image and is therefore not valid for Field Day. Yeah, I can't believe it either, but Field Day doesn't allow any image transmission to count under the rules. That's so weird, since many people hail this as an emergency exercise, and image transmission can be very useful in an emergency. But them's the rules. Next, let's take a question from the ARRL group on Facebook, by the way. I'll put a link below. Jim KB0DBJ writes, "We're trying a new thing, being in Texas and electrical power always being an issue." Yeah, no kidding. We're thinking about running full power, 100 watts, 100% solar and battery. What category does that put us in? What all needs to be battery powered? Obviously the transmitters. What about tuners or computers that are used for keyboard CW? To answer the first question, if you're operating from home, you'll be Class E. Unfortunately, if you're using 100 watts, even if you're using solar and or battery power, you're going to get the exact same power multiplier as if you're using a generator. You do get a 100-watt emergency power bonus, 100-point emergency power bonus per transmitter for any non-mains power source. You can also get a 100-point bonus for making 5 contacts and powered by either batteries or an alternative source that is not a petroleum. And note the word petroleum-driven generator. This can be a source such as a solar power, wind power, microhydro, fuel cell, tidal power, or even a generator powered with biodiesel or ethanol. You can also get a 5-point multiplier if you keep your power to 5 watts and below and run your setup on an alternative fuel source that is not a motor, and note the word motor, driven generator. It seems to me that this is distinct from the bonus where it only specifies petroleum driven generators, so any sort of generator will not qualify for this. In terms of categories, there are battery-only categories for portable stations. This would be both Class A, which is 3 or more persons, or Class B, which is 1 or 2 people. But for home stations, there are no separate battery categories. As for what needs to be battery or emergency powered, your receivers and transmitters, nothing else. Of course, being the purist I am, I would want everything emergency powered. What about radios to work VHF, UHF? What about the radio to do the 10 radiograms or WinLink? From all of the above, only the receivers and transmitters must be on emergency power. Lamar KC5 AOI writes, "My club is doing Field Day this year and concern has come up and I was wondering if I can get some input from more experience at Field Day. The concern is that we have a few that don't want to have their radios close to other radios, thinking it may harm their radio from others transmitting so close. So what do you do to prevent this? Thanks for any and all help, 73's D KC5 AOI Lamar." Well, that's a great question. The radios themselves can be right on top of each other. The antennas are what you need to keep separate. And not just physically separated, but it's a good idea to use a set of bandpass filters. They sell them at popular ham stores. I use a set of 5B4 AGN bandpass filters and they work great. But if you don't want to go that route, get some tuned coax stubs. The idea is that you want to have a stub on the band you want to reject. These are just pieces of coax, open or shorted, depending on the band, that you put with a T connector. And because they're a certain length, they will absorb all of the energy from that frequency range. You put it on the transmitter. The idea is that if you operate on one band, the second harmonic can be strong enough to overload a radio on the other band. Let's say you're operating on 40 meters on one radio and 20 on another. You can have a stub for 20 meters on the 40 meter radio to suppress or clean up any harmonics generated on 20 meters. If your radio has filters or pre-selectors, those help out a lot too. More information is available on a website I'll link below. All right, that's all we have time for today. I'll be putting out quite a few field day videos, and keep your questions coming. I'll keep answering them. Until next time, keep on hamming, and to RJ, see ya.